In chemistry, a reaction only happens when the conditions are right. It's no different in real estate. Welcome to the Alkaline Reaction, a podcast from Alkaline Advisors, where we break down the deals, partners, and capital structures that turn opportunities into outcomes. I'm Spencer Carenti, and today's reaction, condo deposits and how developers build with the buyer's money. Here's something most people never stop to question. A developer can break ground on a condo tower, having put up only a fraction of the cost themselves. The land, the steel, the concrete. A large piece of it is financed by people who don't own anything yet. They're buyers, and their deposit checks are quietly doing the work. There's a phrase I'll come back to a few times today because it's the lens this whole show looks through. The deal is won or lost in the structure and the downside, not the headline return. Condo deposits are a perfect example. So let's break it down. Here's what we'll cover in 5 parts. Part 1, why for sale condo is a different animal than rental. Part 2, the 2 jobs a deposit does. Part 3, how the rules change everything, using 3 states, Florida, New York, and California. Part 4, the risk all 3 share and what actually happens when it goes wrong. Part 5, where the analysis earns its keep and the one question to carry into any deal. By the end, you won't look at a presale the same way again. Part 1, why condo is different. A rental building is a holding business. You build it, you lease it, you hold it, you collect rent for years. A condo is not that. A condo is a manufacturing business. You build a product, you sell the product, you're done. And because you're selling the units, you can sell them before they exist. That single fact is the foundation of the entire financing structure. Hold on to it because it's what makes everything in Part 2 possible. Part 2, the 2 jobs a deposit does. And confusing them is where most people go wrong. The first job is evidence. A signed contract with hard money behind it is the strongest signal of demand that exists in this business. A construction lender will not fund a building on a developer's optimism, so they set a pre-sale hurdle. Show me that a meaningful share of the units are already under contract with real deposits before I release the loan. In that sense, the deposits unlock the debt. They're the key that opens the vault. The second job is capital. This is the deposit money itself going to work, paying for land, paying for construction. Now, let me put a number on that second job because the deposits fund the building sounds abstract until you see the scale. Take a tower that will cost $150 million. 200 units, averaging $1 million each, so $200 million in potential sales. The developer pre-sells at a 20% deposit. That's $40 million in buyer money sitting in escrow before a shovel is in the ground. $40 million on a project that costs $150. Whether the developer can actually spend that $40 million building the tower or whether it just sits there proving demand is the whole ballgame. And here's the part that surprises people. That answer is not up to the developer. It's decided by law. And the law changes dramatically depending on what state you're standing in. Let me show you 3. Part 3, 3 states, 3 rule books. The first state we'll discuss, Florida, the permissive model. Florida lets buyer money do real work. Under the Florida Condominium Act, a developer selling units that aren't finished must place deposits up to 10% of the price into escrow. That first 10% is protected, but here's the consequential part. Deposits above 10% can be placed in a special escrow account and pulled out and used by the developer for actual construction, if the contract allows it. Go back to our $40 million. In Florida, the first $20 million, that's the 10%, stays protected. But the second $20 million, the part above 10%, can go straight into concrete and steel. The buyer's capital becomes the construction capital. That is extraordinarily efficient. It lowers the equity the developer has to risk. It lowers the reliance on expensive debt. But that efficiency is borrowed against a closing that's years away. Remember the lens, structure and downside. We'll come back to what that borrowing costs. In Florida, the deposit funds the building. That's lever 1. The second state, New York, the protective model. New York flips the philosophy. In New York, condos are sold through an offering plan filed with the state attorney general under a law called the Martin Act. And the rule on deposits is strict. All purchaser deposits are held in a special escrow account, pending delivery of the finished unit, not the first slice, all of it. The Attorney General polices it. The escrow agent has to notify the buyer in writing that the money is sitting in escrow. So take that same $40 million in New York. The whole $40 million sits in escrow. None of it builds the tower. In New York, the deposit does the first job, proving demand to the lender. But it is not a construction piggy bank. Same instrument, a buyer's deposit, completely different role, set entirely by which state you're in. That's New York. The third state, California, the gatekeeper model. California controls the on-ramp. Under California's Subdivided Lands Act, you can't sell condo units to the public until the Department of Real Estate reviews the offering and issues a public report. No public report, no sales. Full stop. And the deposits are protected at the front end. Where the project sits under a blanket encumbrance, a construction loan covering the whole property, the buyer's money is impounded in escrow until the developer can deliver the unit free of that lien or posts a bond instead. So in California, before that $40 million is even a question, the state is standing at the door asking whether you're allowed to collect it at all. That's California. So let's recap the three before we go further. Florida, spend it. Buyer money above 10% builds the tower. New York, hold it. Every dollar sits in escrow until delivery. California, earn the right to collect it. The state controls the on-ramp. Now, here's the honest part. I'm giving you the clean version of each rule. In the real world, the contract language is where this is actually won. Two Florida deals can treat the exact same deposit completely differently, depending on how the purchase agreement is written. The statute sets the boundary. The contract sets the deal. Keep that in mind anytime someone quotes you the rule. Part 4. The risk all three share, because no set of rules removes it. The buyer signs at today's price. The unit closes in 2, 3, sometimes 4 years, and everything lives in that gap. Now, why does a buyer even do this? Why front a deposit on a unit that won't exist for 3 years? Because they're locking in today's price in a market they expect to rise. Some never intend to close at all. They plan to sell the contract before delivery and pocket the appreciation. And that's the symmetry that makes this fragile. The same buyer who shows up for the upside is the one who walks when the upside inverts. So watch what happens when it inverts. If the market falls or rates rise to the point where buyers can't qualify for a mortgage, you get defaults at closing. Buyers walk. They forfeit the deposit because the unit is now worth less than the contract price. Losing the deposit is the cheaper option. And here's the follow-through most people stop short of. When those buyers walk, the developer isn't just down a few sales. The loan still has to be serviced. The presale numbers the lender relied on are now broken, and the units have to be resold into a market that is, by definition, lower, because a falling market is exactly what made the buyers walk in the first place. Defaults don't arrive one at a time in good weather. They arrive in a cluster, in bad weather, all at once. This isn't theoretical. We watched it happen in Miami after 2008. Pre-construction buyers walked away from condo contracts en masse, forfeiting deposits because the units were suddenly worth a fraction of what they'd agreed to pay. Whole towers repriced. Now bring back the lens. The deal is won or lost in the structure and the downside, because what the rules really decide is who absorbs that blow first. In Florida, the buyer's money is already in the building, so a wave of defaults hits a developer with a thinner cushion. In New York and California, the buyer is more insulated, so the developer and the lender wear more of it. The regulations are really just one thing, a decision about who carries the risk of the gap between signing and closing. Part 5, where the analysis earns its keep. Because the headline return on a condo deal is almost never the interesting number. The interesting work is underneath it. When do deposits arrive? And can they even be touched? When does the loan fund? When do units actually close? How fast are you assuming units sell, and at what price? And the question that decides everything, what happens to the return if 15% of your buyers walk at closing? If the answer is the deal collapses, you found the real risk, and no amount of headline IRR should distract you from it. At Alkaline Advisors, that's the layer we model, not the optimistic case, the gap, the timing, the absorption, the default scenario, and the rules of the specific state the deal lives in. Because that's where a condo deal is actually won or lost. And if you take one thing from this episode, make it a question you can carry into any deal, not just condos. Anytime someone else's money is funding a project before anything has been delivered, ask two things. Who is protected if it doesn't get delivered? And who is exposed? Answer that, and you understand the deal. In a condo, the someone else is the buyer. Their deposit is evidence and it's capital, and the line between those two is drawn by the law of the place you're building in. So, quickly, what we covered. Condo is a manufacturing business. You sell the product, sometimes before it exists. A deposit does two jobs, evidence and capital. 3 states, 3 rules. Florida spends it, New York holds it, California gates it. The shared risk is the gap between signing and closing, and defaults arrive in clusters, in bad weather. And the analysis earns its keep in the downside, not the headline, because the deal is won or lost in the structure, and the downside, not the headline return. Understand the deposit, and you understand the condo business. That's today's reaction. If you found this episode helpful, please subscribe and join us next time as we continue breaking down the commercial real estate industry. I'm Spencer Carenti, and thank you for your time.